So which one of you is Zaku?
Like, what was tasty? like a little
Scintillating?
scintillating.
Yeah. Was that in?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, we're Zakkubalan, and my name is Neo.
I'm Albert Tholen, and we're both here from Tokyo and New York.
So Zakkubalan is the name that we have given our sort of duo, our collaboration. And we're both filmmakers, and we work mainly in kind of the moving image and sound and video and film. We met in college. We were both working on a film set together, and then, I don't know, it's been 10 years since, basically.
Yeah, we've been working on film stuff primarily, and then I think we basically have said that when we have cinematic ideas that don't necessarily fit into like more structured, like more sort of structured forms of narrative filmmaking or documentary filmmaking, things like that, they sort of spill out into this art space, and it's become a really interesting place for us to explore
Like ideas.
Yeah, different ideas about form and medium and audience.
The word literally, or the word translates to being really frank with each other, or speaking really frankly or openly. And yeah, it's kind of a mysterious Japanese word. It's a combination of two different onomatopoeias. So zaku means to like cut open, and balan is the sound of things spilling out or things falling out. And so it's literally two different sounds combined together to create this new meaning. And so we kind of liked that word as almost a metaphor for editing, or putting two images together through editing and having that create meaning. I don't know, maybe the closest term is expanded cinema, but I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're, like I kind of mentioned, we come from a filmmaking background, and so a lot of what we're exploring are like different definitions or ways of interpreting what cinema is, or async, where basically some of the fundamental ideas is like, okay, what if you saw all the images and heard all of the sounds in a movie at the same time? Right? It's just like, okay, each image is on its own frame, and it's oriented in this space, and you enter this space and you get kind of all of it at once, and you can wander around, and by wandering around sort of edit, quote unquote, like your own movie or your own experience of it. Yeah, it's been phenomenal to work here at the David Ireland House. The staff at 500 Cap has been absolutely phenomenal, super supportive, and all really smart and dedicated and generous people. Which is sort of like, not even to mention how blessed we feel to be making work in a space that's this special, and it's a place that really feels charged with creative energy, and to be able to kind of tap into the legacy of David Ireland, and kind of through that the legacy of a San Francisco art scene has been amazing. And the house really feels like a kind of conduit for inspiration, and in some ways we're just like the chosen mediums for this brief moment, just to kind of like help the house bring more art into the world.
Like the other day, we went out to buy a old CRT television, and it broke down on us, and so we were kind of freaking out, trying to figure out what other CRT TVs are on Craigslist to buy, but it seems like we bought out all the CRT TVs.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of texted a bunch of people, and then somebody down the street ended up being like, oh yeah, we have one in
a
our
friend of a
storage.
friend at a gallery has a TV in
Yeah.
storage, and yeah, why don't you take it for the exhibition?
Yeah.
No problem. Amazing.
We ended up becoming friends, and just love Rico Duenas, who had an exhibition prior to ours, and he came over. We need a projector mounted vertically in this way, and he came over with a bunch of tools and materials and just did it for us, basically. And We haven't found a system.
Yeah.
that
Well,
works.
so here's the thing: is it's been a challenge. It's been a big challenge, and I think part of that challenge is that we lived together for a long time. So much of our collaboration was sort of this like effortlessly happened in and around the routines of our daily life. And since Neo's moved to Tokyo and we've had these travel restrictions, we've had to find a kind of like more structured way to communicate with one another and collaborate. But yeah, I mean, I guess we produced a short film that we shot in Tokyo in April, and I wasn't able to be there because of the travel restrictions, and so it's like, I don't know, the challenge of just being half a world away and trying to be involved and having everyone try to have you involved, but just it's like, what can you do? Like we were saying earlier, it's like, what can you do through Slack? You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of what's been amazing about this experience, because San Francisco does feel a bit like meeting in the middle, and almost for a year and a half, like this is the longest period that we've had together to just make stuff and focus on a single project. Like clearly Neo and I have some kind of like natural inclination to technology and just using cameras, using projectors, televisions, like loving the sort of electronics of it. And from the beginning, that felt like an interesting contrast with the space.
Yeah.
And because I always knew that we were going to bring in televisions, like projectors, cameras, electronics, and that would sort of contrast with the house, which feels very lo-fi and sort of material and fleshy. Even at a conceptual stage, playing with that idea was something we were interested in, and I think it makes like the installation in this house sort of more fun and more interesting. In as far as like that, it's a new thing for 500 cap. Honestly, I wasn't that aware.
Yeah.
And I think that like I can only see that as cool and interesting. Like I think it's to Leanne's credit that she's trying to branch out and invite new mediums, new artists, and they would take a risk on something that maybe is a little out of the ordinary for them. That seems cool.
And this house is perfect for those kinds of things because of how light bounces off of all the walls and how light plays around in space, and so we wanted to kind of explore that. I think if we are digital artists or making digital art, we're maybe the right choice or maybe the good first step for them, because we are particularly janky digital artists and we kind of just throw stuff together, and we're not the most technical people in the world.
Right.
Because movies are pretty confining, structurally speaking. You have to go into a theater or sit in front of a laptop or your room projector, and then you press play, and then it's a time-based medium where there's a beginning, middle, and end, and then it ends, and then that's your experience. And so a lot of our works here, I think, or a lot of the works that we ended up making as artworks end up being some other take on that, or some playing with a different kind of structure of cinema, still using the tools of cinema like cameras and projectors. But then, for example, in async, there's no beginning, middle, or end. You kind of just walk into it.
Leaning into a different mode of engagement.
Yeah. Or one of our works upstairs in the second floor is just very much sculptural. We're using light and we're using an image, but the projector is very much part of the piece itself as well, and the screen, the window that it's projecting onto, is also very much part of the image.
Right.
So we're kind of calling that one a sculpture.
The image or the kind of apparatus for the image becomes part of the piece, and like is taking up space and is asking you to sort of like look at it as an object and engage with it as an object. So that's sort of where we're headed.
Yeah, and I think the reason why we went there is because of David Ireland's house. Because so much of his work is just object-based and material-based.
Right.
We're kind of always talking, or since we've come here, we're talking about how we can imbue an image with like objectness.
Right.
We can make the image itself into an object and
Right.
things like that.
A projected image, right? So it's not just an image.
Yeah.
It's something that you're feeling as embodied or like material or taking up space.
Yeah.
I don't think so. We're just two guys.
Yeah.
We just have fun making art. I think we don't really think about the other stuff because we're also just trying. We're young and we're just trying to put it together and one step at a time, and certainly don't think of ourselves as anything more than like two roommates like fiddling with a camera and a projector, and trying to make something that we think is weird and cool and people might like.
Yeah, we are just kind of two roommates messing around with stuff whenever people invite us to do something. And, you know, it always really happens when people invite us to do something. You know, because usually we're sort of focused on making our films. And so it's only when people like Leanne really invites us to spaces like this where we get an opportunity to make something. And it's so amazing that happens.
Of course, and we feel so touched that, one, people are connecting with the work, right? So that Leanne saw something in it, decided to reach out, and then just off what she felt from that piece, sort of had the faith to say, come here for a month and make a bunch of new art, like in our space, basically. Like, you're welcome here. And given the facility, given the resources, given the manpower and everything, you know, and that's just so, like, that kind of like that faith I find really, really gives me faith in myself more than anything else. Yeah.
The feedback that you're talking about, the feedback loop that you're talking about is, you know, I think we were sort of talking about how to enhance the light bouncing off of the walls more without doing too much post-processing, kind of doing a natural process of it. And then there's this amazing piece, experimental music piece called I'm Sitting in a Room by a guy named Alvin Lucier. And in that piece, he takes a recording of a sentence that he says, or a paragraph that he says, plays it back into a room, and then records that again and continues this feedback loop until the sound becomes completely, or the words become unintelligible and the sound becomes representative of the ambience of the space itself. And are like, we could probably do something like that with the light here, you know? Like, you know, if we projected the same light that's coming into the camera back to itself, then it'll keep getting brighter and brighter.
What's more beautiful than the simple idea of like trying to use the wall's own light back on itself, and just amplify that to a point where it's basically a closed system in some ways.
It's kind of a cerebral textural or cerebral technical process that results in something that's like really visceral and sensory.
Yeah, we really like filmmakers like James Benning and Chantal Ackerman, people that are interested in space and also kind of interested in duration and the power of like a single image, and yeah, I think we've always felt very inspired by landscapes and architecture and sort of being able to explore those things via the camera, and those are really filmmakers that have paved that path, and so kind of honored to work in that tradition a little bit.
We also love this sculptor named Fujiko Nakaya, who's a Japanese woman who uses fog to create sculptures. She engulfs spaces and buildings with fog, using like a special nozzle she developed. And there's something really, I don't know, using fog as your medium for a sculpture, this balance between something that's tangible and there and not at all, and it's something really, I don't know how it directly relates to us, but it's very inspirational, and we love her.
It's very kind of like oriented towards space,
Yeah.
right? How do we create a kind of space?
Yeah.
Then also there's something just
There's
plainly
something
cinematic about fog.
Yeah.
Yeah.